I'm doing everything possible to eliminate subcontractors wherever possible, not because I have some great subcontractors and we always need subcontractors, but the control factor.
Yeah.
I can't scale the business and give you guys the timelines you want with too many subcontractors because they're getting pulled in a million different directions and might not be as organized. So now that we can do this on a big scale, and I don't plan on stopping anytime soon, now it's about getting to as many areas across the province and as possible now that we're getting the system set up. Networking is what built the business.
Yep.
We can go and spend $100,000 a month and it wouldn't bring me the same connections or leads as going to one right club event.
Yeah.
It's insane, right?
What is up, YouTube? Matt McKeever here, and we're back with John from BlackJack Contracting. And today we're going to be talking about the history of BlackJack as well as the future and just the scaling that John's been doing. So I know that probably the first time we crossed paths, John, was at a Right Club event, and you were already established there. But I got a feeling that you didn't have nearly the size of business you do today versus probably, I guess it would have been maybe 3 or 4 years ago now that we would have crossed paths.
Yeah. Actually, we're about 4 years old now. I think we met in like early 2019 before this whole chaos went on thing, and it's been a wild ride since. Pandemic's been a pain in the butt for everything, but it's kind of birthed us in the same thing as in growth.
Mm-hmm.
It's been a fun and wild ride. I started the company off with a good friend of mine and a business partner, and we did it for a couple of years together. And it took us about 6 to 8 months before we realized what our niche was going to be. And I kind of went ham with it. I invested a lot in business coaching, and then once they heard what we do and how you can basically turn it into a McDonald's model is what our whole goal is. When everything decision I make is about scalability so that I could do this across the country. So it started out small, and things that you thought back then are so much different than they are now with the people. And there's that who not and a how book is what's really happening here right now. So we started in mid 2017 as a bet. Another contractor, investor contractor, I was doing electrical for, was doing the same thing we do now, and the jobs were always a mess and a gong show, and customers were always pissed off. And so we sat down for lunch one day, and I said, I bet you I could do it better. And the next week we had started the business and took one of his jobs, and I've never looked back. We originally, started out with the electrical company, and we started the second one. I merged them, then I separated them again once I learned how to actually run numbers through a company, because they don't teach us business, they don't teach us numbers, right? So that's where a lot of education, a lot of different code. I have like 5 different coaching programs. They all teach different things, and then you start bringing in experienced people to help you with it. We are our first year in sales, we were like $180,000. This year I think we're gonna finish just under 5 million. And it's all just learning. So nowadays, we have this big fancy office, and this all kind of happened in a year. I bought out my ex-business partner, just best friends in the whole world. We just have different business visions. He liked small and controlled. I wanted to scale. And then some days you wake up, he's like, I think he was on something. But no,
I think that's just the entrepreneur's roller coaster, right?
Yeah.
There's definitely peaks and valleys along the journey.
So now, we have our office here. We're about 27 people. We're now setting it up to do it on a large scale. So I, hired a construction manager to watch the whole thing, a few project managers. We have 2 coordinators, scheduling coordinators, material coordinators, have our own media department, obviously the office. And now we're doing 25 or so jobs at a time. And it's all investor related. We will not touch something that's not investor. I'm actually making deals with other contractors right now that are in the same field as us to pass referrals. You can give us the investor stuff. We give them the non-investor stuff, because investor world is not for everybody either. You have to in my opinion, the reason why we got successful at it is because I learned about real estate investing, through right clubs and different clubs and listening to guys like you talk. And not everybody does that because this is not a high profit margin type of job because of the work we're in. And obviously investors are numbers people. You're not selling on emotions. You're not worried. They're not worried about pretty things. They're worried about business. And so that I learned. And that's why I think we've done as well we have, because it's about time and money and making sure that their needs are met, they're taken care of, they're not worried. One of the bigger problems is people don't trust contractors, and to be honest with you, they shouldn't. There's unfortunately there's no barrier to entry when it comes to being a contractor. So waking up tomorrow morning, it's like, I feel like being a contractor today, which I did, by the way, and I don't agree with it. I was an electrical contractor. The next day I decided I was a general contractor, and I think that's wrong. But that's what happens in the world with no business education. And we've talked about this before, is that contractors generally don't charge enough money. And it's not about getting rich. It's about they're not even covering their overhead expenses because they don't know what overhead expenses are. And that's why companies end up, not finishing your jobs or running away with your money. It's because they don't have any money to finish it. We've talked about that a lot. And so when I learned about that and know the numbers, so we don't get all the jobs we quote, obviously, because we're going to be on the higher end compared to some of them, but we make sure that doesn't happen.
But the cost is actually going to be what was quoted rather than
exactly quoted, right? So I mean, we could talk about that for hours about the problems, but that's why we were able to scale. It took a lot of work. I spent the last 3 years, like, this is now finally getting to the point where I can go away or not have to worry about everything. It was a dedicated, hard fought battle, and it was worth every dime, every second, every dime, right? I mean, I didn't take a lot of money. We invested it all back here, equipment, tools, employees, whatever they needed. So now that we can do this on a big scale, and I don't plan on stopping anytime soon, now it's about getting to as many areas across the province and as possible now that we're getting the system set up. I know everybody talks about systems, and they are everything, even though no one wants to. Making them, creating them, making them work are a giant pain in the ass, but it's they're everything, because without the system you can't do this.
Absolutely. And I think it's really cool to be able to watch your growth, because I think circling back to what you were talking about earlier there, with a lot of contractors underbidding and getting themselves into sticky situations. I don't have stats on this, but I'd imagine 50% or more of the scams that occur in contracting are actually just like accidental scams, as in someone like painted themselves into a corner, realized like, oh shit, there's no way out but just to run, and they end up running away from the problem they accidentally created. And I think what's so unique about BlackJack is that, very early on in its development, you decided you were going to build a business. Like, you weren't trying to build a job for yourself, you were building a business that was going to scale, and you understood the value behind those standard operating procedures, all the boring things that, again, no entrepreneur really wants to do. It's like, brushing your teeth or going to the gym or whatever it is. It's the stuff that you should be doing, but oftentimes there's friction or just, an excuse there. But you had that vision and that kind of commitment to it. So you were able to actually see yourself through and make sure you're putting in the right steps and the right processes.
That's right. And that's why it's actually kind of cool being in the investor world, because a lot of the guys like yourself and some of the bigger ones are doing the exact same thing in their own field, right? So it's we get to learn. The best thing about it is I'm getting a free education in real estate investing. We bought 2 houses, and I bought my first 2 houses in the last 6 months with family, and on one of mine with a JV on it, and get to learn it all from you guys for just working with it. So scaling is kind of cool because there's so many different ways to do it. Obviously I'm focused on contracting, you guys are focused on your wholesaling business, and there's a lot of investors that are doing it on the burr level, but you get to learn from them at the same time. So it's a lot of fun, and you got the same mindset, right? That's another cool thing about being in the investor world, is that we're all in the we're all basically the same goal. Where we're building things for futures and family wealths, and having fun doing it. So that's why it's a fun business to be into and a fun field to be into. We consider ourselves an REI company, but we're contractors, right? We're just in a different field than some of the other people. But so now once you figured that out and you have the niche, it's really relatively easy to scale towards it, because we know there's 3 or 4 things you guys want, and we're able to build a business around it. So we're nowhere near done here, but it's getting to the point now where it's kind of cool for myself, because I don't actually have to do one specific thing anymore. Up until 6 months ago, I did all the estimating, all the sales, but now we have people to help with that. Office work, we have a couple people for that. Construction and project management, we have people for that, and we're adding more and more as it goes on. But so for me, it's kind of cool, because now that we have the people in place, I can actually focus on the scalability and getting to the new areas to help as many people as we can. So it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, I know there's a lot of investors that are looking forward to seeing BlackJack come to their city sometime soon. So I definitely know there's a long list of hopes and wishes there. And so right now you guys are doing like 25 or more projects at a time. What kind of size and scope, or do you mind kind of letting us know, like, what would be a smaller project? What would be like one of the bigger projects you guys are doing?
They're growing to renovation costs, and people are doing bigger projects. So it used to be a basement suite, taxes in 77,000 on the average project size is well over 150,000. Anything under 50,000 is considered a small job nowadays. We're about to start a 5-plex renovation, which is a major transformation of a commercial building. We're talking about $400,000 project. And as we talked last time, we're gearing up for the coach houses, which, based on other people's that in the areas are averaging, 200, 225K. So all the projects are rising. People are doing bigger things. And I think that was out of necessity, because the little things are just being chewed up too easy, right? So the projects are all different things. We're actually getting into things like concrete walkouts.
That's creating a separate entrance for the basement.
Concrete separate entrance for the things. So that's something. We have all the equipment and the staff to do it now. So I'm doing everything possible to eliminate subcontractors wherever possible, not because I have some great subcontractors and we always need subcontractors, but the control factor. I can't scale the business and give you guys the timelines you want with too many subcontractors, because they're getting pulled in a million different directions and might not be as organized. So whatever I can do myself, I'm trying to do ourselves with adding the equipment and staff to the business. So things like concrete walkouts, egress window cuts, all that stuff, we have the equipment and staff to do so that we can control the timelines. And that's how I plan on going forward as much as possible, because again, I could scale much easier using nothing but subs, because all I need is a management staff. But unfortunately, the control isn't there.
It doesn't feel like a strong foundation.
No, it's scary as hell, to be honest with you. So I mean, there is like, all the major trades, plumbing, electrical, HVAC. Other than I own the electrical company, those two have great contacts with. And I have one guy in the office that basically is his job is to build relationships with subcontractors for things that we do need, and do whatever we can ourselves. And it seems to be the best way to do the system. And now I gotta take that and figure out how to do it across the board.
I know there's a lot of investors that look forward to that day. And so I guess one last thing, when we're just talking about like building and scaling this business, I'd love to just explore maybe some of the biggest lessons that you've learned over the last 3 or 4 years, John.
Sure. I mean, how important accounting is. In the very beginning, was something I didn't know about, and it took my new accountant over 8 months to fix all the stuff that wasn't being paid attention to.
Well,
And
and
I
I
mean,
think building upon the accounting side too, often like cash flow management, I know
yeah,
is
which
something
is
that
the
a lot of
huge challenge.
contractors get into
Yeah.
trouble with.
Cash flow is the number one killer of contractors in the world, and it's not, and people don't really understand the definition of, profits versus cash flow. You can make money and
Hmm.
still go broke
Yeah.
because cash flow management. So I'm fortunate, my mother is my office manager, so we obviously, I'm not worried about someone taking my money. So we work together to cash flow manage. I have a virtual CFO, so my accountant runs a virtual CFO program. We meet once a month and go through the numbers, and he shows me patterns and histories
Hmm.
for somebody like me to learn that didn't come from it. I've learned so much from him. Um, and the best thing about him is he's a contractor specialist and a real estate investor specialist built into one. Pretty cool.
That's good. Yeah.
So that value right there. Dealing with personalities, because there's a lot of high personalities in this trade,
Hmm.
in this business. And the funny thing is that systems that I had 2 years ago that I thought were going to take a thing are gone and out the wind because they're not doable on a scalable level. So things that I was doing 6 months ago, we aren't doing anymore to scale and to make all these things work together. How many people it took to replace myself out of the business was
Hmm.
probably the most fascinating thing, because it took 9 people to replace myself for what I did. Now, I was built differently. Um,
Hmm.
I was willing to do things that most people aren't willing to do, and I'm sure you know what that means.
Yeah. But
You,
it is fascinating because oftentimes you feel like, okay, I'm just going to hire my replacement and I'll move
yeah,
on. And then all of a sudden you realize that, most people want nights and weekends, they
yeah,
want a life and stuff. And oftentimes as an entrepreneur, especially in the initial growth phase of the business, right? Those first
yeah,
few years are so critical that you just need to be exactly dialed and plugged in.
yeah. 6 to 7 days a week for 3 years, and it didn't know much difference. You just did it, and it was
Hmm.
worth it. It
Yeah.
was worth it.
It's amazing to see what you've been able to build over these last 3 or 4 years,
Yeah,
John.
it's not even just me though. It's watching, studying on through the same boat. You have to work your ass off for a few years.
Hmm.
It just, you can't, you don't have the money or the cash flow to, you've built it up enough, and now that it's happening, I get to spend a little more time with the family, enjoy the thing, which is really, they're enjoying that, I'm enjoying that, sort of. Sometimes I want to hide in the garage, but that's a different story. But it's
Hmm.
so I think that was one of the bigger things that I learned,
Hmm.
was how many people it took to replace, you know focus, my what you're willing to do. And you know learn, like, even for me, how much I learned about the real estate investing field. I'm no expert yet, but I've learned quite a bit.
Hmm.
And I got that just by hanging around. Networking is what built the business.
Yep.
We could go and spend $100,000 a month, and it wouldn't bring me the same connections or leads as going to one right club event.
Yeah.
It's insane, right?
Yeah. Just
And
being willing to talk and interact with people can build such a deep relationship. And so many contractors or other service oriented business towards real estate investors just never take that step or commitment to get plugged into the community and network.
no, and I'm not afraid to educate. I have a contractor coming down from Windsor next week to come learn from us, because he watches us on YouTube and he just wants to learn some of our systems. I'm not. He offered me money, so I don't want your money. You can come learn from us. I don't care when I get there. If I come to compete with you, I'm coming to win. So I'm not worried about what you know about, right? So
Hmm.
it's a mindset, but I mean, give I give free advice all the time. I don't care. Our
Hmm.
whole YouTube channel is based on education. It's not based on trying to sell anything. That'll work itself out.
Yeah.
And I mean, even doing, what we do together here, this is for education. Get your name out, say hi. It's a lot of fun to chat, but
Hmm.
whether or not it brings people over, I couldn't care less. It works itself out, right?
Yeah, I think when people see that you're providing value to the community, it always gets repaid in different ways
Exactly.
and different paths. But yeah, love that philosophy. It's definitely a philosophy that I live by as well with my YouTube channel. Is just putting value out there, and people naturally want to reciprocate if they've received value from you.
That's right.
Awesome,
So
John.
that's her, and it's been a wild ride, and I can't wait to see what the future holds.
Yeah, I really look forward to seeing you guys expand. Again, I know there's so many investors that are looking forward to seeing you guys expand as well. And we'll throw a link in the video description down below if you guys want to get in contact with John or BlackJack Contracting. They're in a lot of different places in southwestern Ontario now, and also moving further east. I know a lot of investors are moving into kind of the Pickering, Belleville, in Kingston areas as well these days. So I know you're also moving east. And again, I think it's so important for real estate investors to be able to trust their power team, right? The people that you're really relying on. And that's your mortgage agent, it's your real estate agent, it's definitely your contractor, right? Especially if you're a flipper, if you're a BRRRR investor, you need someone that you can really trust on. And in these times with supply chain management issues and price crazy increases and it's all over the place, knowing that you've got someone that's relationship oriented rather than transaction oriented is really key.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, thanks again, John, and really encourage you guys at home, reach out to BlackJack if they're in your area. Otherwise, cross your fingers and hopefully they'll be there soon.
Thanks, guys.